Hello, beautiful souls, to another episode of About Her with the wonderful Alice. Thank you so much for joining back on. I am so happy that we're doing multiple sessions this year because reading the energies over the last month was so fun and so cool to see what came through and how we've interpreted things. And it actually led to such a big awareness that I'm more than grateful to have you back, my dear.
Thank you so much for having me back, Anna. I always love our conversations, and I already know that it's gonna be a good one when I had like itchy throat last night, and then it was raining before our call, and that happened too in our first call this year when we started off with the fire horse. It was also similar, like it was raining, a lot of water element, but also a lot of the fire with me feeling the heat in the body. So I already know it's going to be good. Let's see what the universe has for us.
Yes, I love that you mentioned this. And I think this is a wonderful jumping off point. The shift in perception about what it means when things go wrong or when there's tension, like you said, right before jumping on a call that is also recorded live. There's an itchy throat, or we had some technical issues there. I was in a big traffic jam this morning. Things were just not as smooth as we might wish them to be when we jump on something that is a little bit out of the ordinary of the daily stuff that we do, like a podcast. And most times, or in society in general, I feel this is going to be a sign that things are not meant to be, or people are easily stressed out, which is so understandable. But I would love to dive into the different perspective that we're just opening up here to say, like, oh, there's something good in it because of all these things, because that's not the easiest of all thought roads to go down.
Yeah.
So I think what comes to me first is this Kabbalah explains it quite cool. I think the way to say, like, if there's a lot of light to reveal, if there's a lot of like wisdom to be shared, so hopefully it is in this podcast, then also the dark side or just the opposite side of things is also equally big. And that leads to the friction, kind of like testing us a little bit. Like, if we really want to do that, if we really want to grow, we can explain it with talking about limiting beliefs, the paradigms, the nervous system that tries to protect us. There's like many ways to explain it, but I feel like it all comes down, if you condense it to, there's a growth. There is something that is a little bit special in whatever way, and therefore, there's tension coming with it. And it's not the universe testing you, as in, if you fail, it's not going to be yours. The way, like, do you know what it's about to happen? It's kind of a growth pain. And it's a misinterpretation that I feel is happening a lot of time, where people say, like, oh, I think that's not meant to be. So could we
Mhm.
just reschedule? Or maybe I'm not good at speaking, or maybe I sound whatever when my throat is itchy, or maybe the connection breaks off because of the bad weather. Let's not do it. That's always kind of the conclusion that would be the easiest one, that maybe would be preferred by the forces who don't want to be the light revealed. That's kind of the Kabbalistic way of looking at it. And while I'm not totally fond of the dark side, light side, I still believe this helps to explain a lot of things and helps to shift the perspective to see something good in a tension like this, or a friction that we're experiencing right now.
Yeah, it's what I often share, like, part of the priestess path of being a priestess is becoming the woman who is able to have the ability and the capacity to hold ourselves in the journey without abandoning ourselves. Like, I love that too. When I received that realization, I was like, oh, thank you, divine. Like, oh, yeah, because I'm a big believer as to how you do anything is like a reflection of how you do everything, because everything is interconnected. What seems to be quote unquote small things in life, right? Like traffic jam, like itchy throat, and in a ways mundane things, but they're just kind of reflection like how do you hold yourself true? Do you panic or do you stay calm or do you abandon yourself? In this case, let's abandon this call, let's not do it. And yeah, it's just really the ability to be regulated in the nervous system in that process of the expansion and that growth. And then a big part of the process is like what you say, navigating the shadow and the light and dancing between the two, knowing that they can coexist at the same time. And you still get to be in your power no matter what. And that you are already connected to the divine, already protected, already provided for. You can go through it with as much ease as you allow it. It doesn't always have to be dramatic, but sometimes life we have emotions and things happen and that's okay. But it's also like a discernment as to like, yes, sometimes it might really be like this is not the thing. It might be the red flag, but sometimes it's just like, part of the process. So it's again having also that discernment to know the difference. But I just want to take this opportunity to really kind of like call it out among like the spiritual community in the sense to take responsibility for our own emotions, our own state of being and our own life. Like astrology help, but Mercury is not the blame for everything. You don't get to blame everything on Mercury retrograde. Like, sure, sometimes technology does get challenging, but then if you know Mercury retrograde is happening, why don't you charge your phone in advance? Why don't you have the spare battery? If that we don't use spare battery anymore, but you get what I mean. Like you can always like work around it and not just like, oh, it's the moon or it's like I always say like the poor moon and the poor Mercury, like they take all the blame for our shit. But then like when things go well, it's like it's me. Like we don't say, oh, thank you, the moon. It is so smooth now. But then when it goes bad, oh, it's the full moon. So like just having that discernment to like take responsibility and work with the universe, but be kind to yourself. Yeah, but like really that discernment and responsibility is like coming up as we are talking.
I love that very much. And I think 2 points are standing out like really big, which one of them is the blame game that we've just mentioned. And it's quite funny to look at it to say like
Huh?
everything that goes wrong is kind of to blame on any planet constellation or another person or whatever outside of us, while everything's going right. It's like, look at how good it did. And there's no in like being proud of ourselves. That's totally not what I mean, but it's about taking on responsibility for our lives and not going down the easy road. I think that what it comes down to. There's like these two kind of teachings or perception sides of things where it's like you should always take the easy road and that's like the way of living, that's living in the flow, that's living in alignment. That's one thing that I see especially in the spiritual community, but like in general people who always take the easy road, and then the other people who always take kind of the road with the friction, who then blame the people who take the easy road for taking it. And I feel, as with everything, the sweet spot lays in the middle, because even Abraham Hicks, who's always kind of used as take the easy road permission slips, that's not actually that. That's just like a fraction of the teaching. And so I think it is in everything we do. It's not about always taking the easy road or always taking the hard road. It's like, what do you say with the discernment? It's about seeing like, why does it come up? Does it come up because it's a growth pain, like the icky throat or what we've just discussed before? Or is this an actual sign to stop? You can ask your intuition. That's why you have it. You can use the wisdom of your emotions. That's why you have it. All of these are tools for you to kind of discern what's the next step to take, instead of just saying like black and white worldview, that's bad or that's good. I think there's nothing is really that clearly bad or that clearly good. So there's always different perspectives to invite in and then check within our bodies to see what is the best thing for me right now. And that might change in a few moments. So then again, what is the best thing for me right now? That is the one thing that came up. And then I loved what you shared about holding the two perspectives at once, because that's something I strongly believe as well. And for me, there always comes the picture of the magnet to it, which has, so that it can work and do its magic as a magnet, has two sides. And it actually needs those two, otherwise, it's not
Mm.
working. And I think we're humans working the same. Our magnetism comes from being able to hold these two very opposing perspectives or very opposing beliefs. Like you said, it's part of the path of the priestess, but I think it's available to all of us to a certain extent to say, like, I don't have to choose to be on this or that side. I don't have to choose to live my life this or that way. It's both. And that is what creates the magnetism and the uniqueness and brings us closer to what we're actually here to do, to our soul's mission, into the flow or the alignment or however you want to call it, kind of the sweet spot that we're always trying to get to. It is found through the portal of the opposing truth and not through digging into what's right or wrong.
Beautifully said. Yes, 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 yes. It boils down to the meaning that we human mind give to it, right? Like what is good, what is bad. It's our own definition. And also what is even easy road, like what is my definition of easy road and yours is different. And what Abrahams was teaching is actually the path of least resistance.
Yeah,
She has never said the path of no resistance.
it's true.
But we selectively hear it as like life is meant to be like, oh, like unicorn and rainbow. Like, but she's talking more about like the attitude. You get to be with ease. You get to have it with ease, but it doesn't mean like there is nothing in happening in front of you. Like if you're walking down the road, there might be some roadblocks. Well, you can struggle to put it aside or you can do it with ease. It doesn't mean like, oh, the path is going to be clear. Well, for the most part, if you're in alignment, it will be, but it is not like 100% because we are here to live the human experience. I always like to share the analogy of like, we are here to have the pizza, to eat pizza. Maybe that's my whole life purpose, like that's why I have the human body, right? So I can eat the pizza and I can drive the car and whatever. It is common to have like so-called friction or challenges to navigate, but we get to approach it with ease. And I really love what you say about magnetism. It's beautiful, like that pushing and pulling, that opposite, which is also kind of like the masculine and feminine, and then coming into that divine union and the oneness. That is what brings us back into our power and to really return to the body, the wisdom of the body, checking within the intuition. Yeah, everything is so beautiful.
You know
Welcome.
what I love is that we can layer on many layers on an analogy like the one with the magnet, for example, because we can
Mm-hmm.
have like the two opposing truths as well as we can have what you just mentioned, the two opposing energies, the feminine and the masculine. And when you look at like how a magnetic field is actually built, then you have like this torus field that is coming out of it that actually leads within this one point, like the soul point. It's kind of like opening up a portal. And I feel that embracing of these opposing whatever
Mm.
layers we're talking about, the energy layers, the truth, the way we do things, whatever it is. It could be any minor thing in our lives. It could be wanting to eat healthy but then eat the pizza. It could be so many things that we layer on this analogy, and all of them help us to actually access that portal or even create that portal much more than we would say, oh, we're going into one extreme and kind of like focusing all our energy on one side of this magnet. So, what I want to say is it's really about embracing the all
Mm.
of the things and not so much going into what our brain kind of likes to do, saying, like, that's right, that's wrong, just so that it can sort things into boxes and form a much easier picture. But it's our job, I feel, especially with the awakening process, to really lovingly call our brains back and our habits and our nervous system in general to say, like, no, I'm I want it differently. I'm able to hold more and I choose to embrace the whole piece of cake and not just this tiny fraction. So yeah, I think that ties in very beautiful into the energy of the last 2 weeks since the Osara Fest. I feel it's especially intense. Like every year, the energies are like even more created with friction. And even though there's no Mercury retrograde right now, it feels like it is in so many ways. And I feel we're, especially this year, 2026, we're invited to look at all the things that come up from the past 9 year circle as well as from our lifetime this time to like really bring all the stuff that didn't come out last year up to the surface and see how we can deal with it. So I would like to ask you, because recent events like really helped me to very dig deep into my own shadows. If things are coming up now on your side that are like feeling like tension or there things are just not going your way, do you notice you holding yourself differently than before? Like you've grown your capacity or react differently than before? Do you notice that all of this like unearthing of stuff over the last year made you change
Mm-hmm.
your bit of reacting or responding?
It's about reclaiming all parts of me. It's exactly what you say. It's about embracing all parts of me, reclaiming all parts of me. And literally, I was just sharing with you the other day. I just recently created a light language activation that says reclaim my voice, reclaim your voice across lifetimes. Literally, what you just said, it's about reclaiming your voice, reclaiming your power, and reclaiming all parts of you. And this is something that I want to share. It's like personal story and reflection. Recently, just I think 2 days ago, I was like in meditation, and then suddenly I was like, oh, you had this light language masterclass that you created that, you decided to put it down for whatever reason, put it up again. And I was like, why? But why? I already put it down. And then I listened and I trusted and I followed the nudges. So I was like, okay, I followed through the nudges and then I realized something because I was asking myself, why did you ask me to put it back up? But then let me ask myself, why did I put it down to begin with, right? Of course, I have a very logical reason, like, oh, the audio wasn't good, whatever, all the so-called logical reason. But then I was like, no, that was not it. What happened was I put up something so true, so potent, and so powerful. And then I put it up and my nervous system went like, oh my God, the world is gonna see me now. I'm gonna be seen as this so-called girl who talk about light language so publicly, and then it's actually not safe. Let's just like put it down. And then of course I have 500 logical excuses, which is totally not true. So I put it down and like chuck it under the carpet. And then I realized what happened was exactly what I was sharing at the beginning. I wasn't able to hold myself through the process and I abandoned myself in the process by abandoning the light language masterclass, which was okay. It was part of the process. But what I did 2 days ago, it wasn't even about putting it back up. It was about reclaiming that part of me that I've abandoned, reclaiming my voice back then that for whatever reason I chose to suppress, and reclaiming my light and power that I have shrunk and dimmed for whatever reason. The reason could look like things like, oh, the audio wasn't so good, or there is not enough sign up to justify, or whatever. Like you will know it because it's gonna sound so ridiculous when you look back at it. But at that point, it felt like, oh, it was the most aligned thing to do, but it wasn't. It was like fear, but disguising itself as like quote unquote alignment was totally not. So the moment I saw it, I was like, oh, this is big. It's really that honoring and embracing all parts of me. And that made me realize that we do that a lot. I did it a lot. Like It's like, like I always think like the new me is better than the old me. So I kind of want to reach for like the next identity and the next timeline and the next reality, right? Which is amazing. However, it doesn't mean the old me is bad or worse or not as good, because that is again rejecting a part of me. It's like saying the 5 years old me is worse than the 15 years old me. That's totally not true. That's what we did with our business, with our life, with our life. Oh, I don't want that old version of me. No, no. Like it's kind of more like pushing and rejecting her, rather than like, I honor you, I see you, even the priestess part of you that is wounded, that was scared, that was in the shadow. You honor and embrace her. Doesn't mean you have to live in that reality anymore because you have outgrown in a new identity. Just be aware where you are rejecting yourself without realizing it, and abandoning yourself without planning for it, and just learning to embrace, honor, and reclaim all those pieces back, and all those voices and power. And oftentimes, it really is in the smallest things that you can get to say. It doesn't always have to be this wow dramatic moment in my life, and I realized that, but it cannot be something so simple like putting a language masterclass up. That's it. And yeah, so it was such a empowering moment for me, from such a quote unquote small thing like posting things up. But then, yeah, it felt like really like yes, I own my power.
Wow, I love that. I thank you so much for sharing. I feel this is true for all of us for about a
Mm-hmm.
gazillion times. And I came to the same conclusion that
Yeah.
the small things are often holding the biggest, biggest insights for us. And it's so easy we talked about the mundane briefly before, to kind of like put it under the rug or kind of wash it away and say, well, that was nothing. That was just, that was nothing. When actually the microcosm, macrocosm, it wasn't nothing. It was everything, because it kind of was able to give you, but you just choose to not look at it. And we all do very many times a day, choose to not look at what is the underlying message behind. So for you, it wasn't about putting up or down a masterclass. That was just the actual tool. But everything that you've shared about the awareness tape came up, like the things that you became conscious about, that is the real reason why this needed to come up, because now you are able to hold yourself differently. Like your nervous system allows more things in, and you've grown into a version of you that can actually hold it. While, and I love that you touched on this, the old version of you wasn't bad or wrong or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the analogy of the child is so beautiful, because the 5-year-old version of you has her own magic, and the 15-year-old version and the 25-year-old version. So it's not that one is better than the other. I feel we've just used the metric of knowledge to decide which one is further along the road. Because,
Mm.
of course, the 25-year-old version of you knows more than the 5-year-old version on a logical scale, but that's only one layer. And I feel, again, we're so often so easily trying to look at things the most obvious way, when that's just one part of it. Because maybe the 5-year-old us are so much more able to hold joy or approach people with confidence than a 25-year-old version of us. So we can actually learn from the old version a lot
Mm.
in this manner, while the 5-year-old version might not be as good in math or techie stuff than the later version. So I think it depends on what you actually want to learn about, and not just say like, oh, that's old me. I've done that last year, how far I've come since then. That happens to me so many times. And I don't know any entrepreneur who doesn't do it, but still it's kind of an interesting approach, because we're rejecting ourselves. And what is time, anyways? We're rejecting ourselves just because we think this is outdated, while it's not, because someone else is at exactly that point who needs to hear that. And the fact that you choose to call back your power and reclaim your voice by doing that small, mundane task of uploading a file can help so many people to come to the same conclusion. I think it's really cool how the ripple effect then works, that the people who now are able to see that, the visibility that you can now get and you can actually hold it, how much more this energy is rippling out into the collective than if you wouldn't have put it up.
Yes. Since you mentioned about visibility and reclaiming your voice, there's another story that I want to share. And I'm embracing my storytelling side, because like you were saying,
Thought about
you
that.
were sharing with me, right? Like that alone was a gift. So yes, I'm reclaiming that gift of mine too. So, and I feel this story is gonna relate a lot with a lot of people, especially in the online world where most people it's so easy to hide because it's online, right? You don't even have to
Yeah.
use your face or your name. And so what happened? This was so funny. So I was a teacher in a platform, but I was also using this platform as a student. Okay. So I had two profiles. So one is like my teacher profile, Elies and I, very, polished. And then another one is like my student profile, which I use a different name, no face, like totally hiding. Cause like, I don't want people to know that I'm like the same teacher. So I attended one of the live events. So usually when I attend live event, I always like use the secondary profile because like I don't want my student to see me in live event and I don't feel safe sharing it. Things like that. It's just like me trying to hold up to this whole image of a teacher, if there is even one. But that was just like how I was like doing it. And then I was like doing it so naturally that I wasn't even aware, if you know what I mean. It's like, oh, it's just natural. I will use that account. And then I think 2 weeks ago, I was in this event about voice activation. And then we were sharing, and I was just, oh, I think he was asking, what's your intention? So I was just sharing intention. And to me, sharing intention is no big deal. It's not like it's just sharing intention. And then I said, my intention is to reclaim my voice across lifetimes. And then the host is like, reading it out. And then like he was feeling a shiver in the body and he read it out again. And I think he read it out 3 times. He was like, oh my God, this is so good. I felt it. And he was like, did you read it out and listen to yourself? And then he was like telling everybody like, everybody read out this sentence. Like there is like an activation in this sentence alone. And I was like, it's just an intention, like I was like so casually sharing it. And then he was like, I'm going to quote you. And then obviously he's gonna quote the wrong name because that wasn't my real profile, And that was for the first time. I was like, no, that's not me. That is not my real name because all this while I was happy hiding, right? But for the first time, when credit is due, in my heart, I was like, I should have used my real name and my real profile. Then he's gonna find me. Everybody's gonna see me, and they're gonna quote me, not this fake girl profile. It was so funny. It was totally a fear of missing out. I was like, I shouldn't have used that profile. But then, of course, I realized what was happening. Who asked you to be hiding? Like you are the one who chose to hide. And literally, that was my moment of reclaiming my voice. Literally at that moment. And I was like, I'm gonna use my real profile from now on. Like, no more hiding. And then it occurs to me, if it's in real life, right? Like if you go to an in-person event, I don't get to put a fake mask. I will go in as me and I will introduce myself. I know, right? As me, right? I'm not gonna going to a costume party. But why was I doing it online? And then I realized it was because it's easy. And then it makes me think how everyone else is doing that. Think about it, like all the YouTube comment you receive, right? How many of them are like with proper picture or like a real name? Most of them are kind of like nicknamey. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It is totally okay for privacy. I do that for my own personal YouTube too. But I'm just saying in this very example that I was sharing, it wasn't about privacy. It was just hiding. It was plain hiding. So yeah, and actually that was how Reclaim Your Voice Across Lifetimes Light Language Activation that was released a week later came about. It started from this story. And yeah, I just want to share it because of the relatability in terms of how easy it is to hide online, and that privacy is one thing, hiding is another thing. Again, coming back to discernment, but the story was just too funny not to share. So yeah, that's why I'm sharing it.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I've told that to you over the last weeks a few times. I think that I feel we're learning through stories so well.
Mm.
Humans are like really good at learning through stories. So sharing a story instead of a teaching, like we both do naturally, is so much more beneficial sometimes because it sticks in the head. And I think so many people can relate to this, using an account that maybe doesn't have a picture on it, or a name that isn't actually your real name, or kind of a combination or like a play around with your name, but it's not the full like, here I am, that's me. It's not that energy of like, look at me, that's me. Um, and I've realized that over the last few months again. So it's interesting that it comes up in this conversation about the faceless accounts, about the visibility, because I'm just putting together a program, um, actually with a digital agency, about visibility. And we were talking, and then we came across this phenomenon of the faceless accounts, which has kind of bloomed over the last years. And as you said so beautifully just now, there's discernment to use around, do you do it out of privacy because you have a job that would kind of interfere if, or you don't just want to have your family life private, or like a good actual reason, or, and I feel that's part of the most reasons, do you feel like there's a not enoughness in you and that's why you don't want to share? Maybe people feel not beautiful enough to share their face. Maybe they think they're not good enough at speaking, or they don't know the language well enough that they want to speak in, so that they can reach enough people. They want to speak in English, but they're not good enough at it, they think. And so I think that we have a lot of reasons that, as you shared before, logically, they sound like really good reasons to do it. But if you look at it just from a little bit outside, then it's very clear that there's a limiting belief or a wound that is leading you, and not the actual reason of, I want to be private. And I choose to, maybe like the way I choose to not talk about my kid or show my kid online. That's a privacy thing. While, do I use a faceless account or not? That's not a privacy thing. That's, when I started doing a faceless account a few years ago, that was like me thinking like, maybe I'm not good enough at this, so let's just not go there. It's kind of staying in the comfort zone. And we do that so many times online that it has been very normal. The same with ChatGPT. We talked a lot about AI last time. I think hiding behind faceless account and hiding behind letting everything be written, every messaging on your website by AI, could be the same thing. It doesn't have to be. But also, again, there's a lot of like overlay between, I do want to hide, or I want to learn something from it, or I want to make it better, structure it better, whatever your reasons might be. So there's lots of options to not be ourselves online. And as you said, would you do it in real life? No, you wouldn't put on a mask. You wouldn't go to a party and then don't say hi to anyone the way you enter um, a profile or a live and don't say anything. We just wouldn't do it. So there's like two versions of us living, the online and the offline version. And I feel
Mm.
most of us are having like two very different versions. They don't overlap as much. And maybe, just maybe, that's because of this. We wish we would be somehow different. And we can play that out online more than we can actually do it in our hometown. So if you ever wanted to be the dancing queen, then you can be that online, but you cannot be that in your hometown where all the 500 people living there know you, for example. So I think it has a lot to do with dreaming, with wounded beliefs, with what do you think you can achieve or hold or are worth of having or not. So it actually tells us so much about the limiting belief systems that are still operating. Funny, isn't it? Oh my
I
God.
know, I know. It's like, oh, visibility and wish wound, like it's everything we have talked about in the past few episodes, but
Yes.
they are kind of like deepening and like coming together.
Yes, I love that. I love that coming together. I feel that's exactly what we're doing this year, like bringing all of these things together and clicking the puzzle pieces into play to say, like, oh, that's what I've learned. And that's where, like you said, you reclaimed your voice here. You uploaded that masterclass. There's there's so many like things that are coming together now that kind of build on each other to actually get us closer to the versions of us that we're meant to be. So it's kind of like the shedding of old layers so that the actual essence can shine through. And for all of that, I feel we needed to have the whole process, because if we go back into the story that you just shared about the workshop and that um, putting it back online, or even you sharing such a beautiful piece of wisdom and then realizing like, no, now that they don't know that it's me because I've used that account where I'm like private. Um, that I feel, even though uncomfortable in the moment, holds again so much truth to the learning experiences that was taking place in that moment. Because if you wouldn't have gone through that experience, you wouldn't have been able to
Mhm.
extract that piece of wisdom in that moment. Maybe at some other moment, but actually, it's kind of cool that all of these things come up because of the learning experience of them.
Yes, everything happens for a reason, as you know, the saying goes.
Yes.
There's another theme that has been coming up for me is that there's this energy of like, and I know for me it stems from being in self development for a very long time. So there is this, as the name suggests, you're supposed to continue developing yourself. So there, so there is this constant need to correct and fix because there is always something better, right? And but then actually that stems a lot in like not good enoughness than actual expansion, because the truth is you are constantly expanding. The only question is whether you realize it or not, or whether you're aware and conscious or not. But you don't actually have to continue fixing and correcting, because I saw that reflected a lot in my work. So I don't know if maybe if you can relate to it in one way or another. Sometimes it looks like I'm gonna improve something, but actually it's just me fixing something that I think is not good enough. And it's just so sneaky. And yesterday he's like, so I think for the past few days, the weather was hot, so it was oily. So I felt like my hair was like oily and everything. So I was like, I needed a new haircut. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna get a haircut before our podcast, because you know it'll be just in time. And I went to the salon, and usually I didn't go with the owner, but yesterday the owner came out of nowhere, and he was like, okay, let me give you like advice. And then he was like, oh, your hair was beautiful, there is nothing to cut here. Okay, but then I was like telling him my concern, and then he was like, but then oily hair is nothing to do with haircut. That's just oily hair. You just wash your hair, and whatever discomfort you are feeling is just because it's the first time you had this kind of haircut, which is more like a men's haircut. Like at the back, it was like poking me, because like woman haircut they don't stick to the neck, but this one like it sticks to the neck, which is why I was like, "Ugh." But he was saying it was just more like you are not used to it, but if you get comfortable with that feeling, it is supposed to be like that. It's part of the sensation. And he said, unless you want to change a totally different hairstyle, we can do it. But if you want the same hairstyle, I'm gonna tell you, if I cut it for you, you're gonna walk out thinking, why did I just spend money? Because you're not gonna see any difference. And we both laughed, and he said, come back a month later. And I was like, oh my God, what else am I doing with my life beside haircut? That was like constantly fixing something that's already working. And just because I don't feel good or like I'm in a shitty mood and then things are not working, let's fix it. I know, right? And then the best part that really hit me was he was saying, I forgot my train of thought. There was something he said that, yeah, so basically like there is nothing to fix here, and that it's about like getting used to that sensation, right? Like, so if you are used to it, that it is more like you're getting used to new things, that it is that, like it is quote unquote bad. You're just not used to it. If you're used to this sensation, this is how it is. And I was like, yeah, there's nothing to fix. I'm whole and complete and free. Not just my hair, but me, all versions of me and all of my programs and offering and every single of my YouTube content, like everything. There's nothing to fix. And I was like, this is the most enlightening haircut that I have never had because I didn't have the haircut. I should pay him like maybe like a life coaching fee instead. It was so good and was so good. Like I was like, I know, like
That, and I love that he was so honest. He was able to be so honest because he could easily have taken your money. And a lot of people do take advantage of people when they are in that state of like, I don't know, but let's see if this fixes my feelings. And he didn't. So I think
yeah.
that is wow on its own. And also the realization behind it that I feel so often comes up in our lives where we try to one of my past coaches called it procrastitasking, and I think this fits into very well, like doing things because we think that would make things better, but not actually doing the things that we need to do. So it's kind of we're doing tasks to procrastinate on the actual important things. And sometimes this actual important things is just realizing that there is nothing to fix and your job, quote unquote, is holding what you have. Because, like, we've talked about within the last year so much about how we enjoy creation a lot and creating new things. And speaking for myself, I've realized over the last 2 years of creating thousands of things, I love it. But sometimes, just sometimes, I hide behind the creation because then I don't have to sell. And selling felt so
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable for me over the last year. So I'd rather create something before I sell the things that I've already created that I know are good, that I know I stand by still. But selling feels uncomfortable. And so I found a way around it. And I think that's kind of the same thing where we try to optimize something that doesn't need optimization while not checking in with what actually needs to be done or be held. Because yes, the new is beautiful and it kind of gives us a little dopamine hit and it's like feeling like development, and often it is, but also we can develop while holding the things that we have. And sometimes even in the areas that we have overlooked or found a way around. So for me, that would be the selling part. Now that I'm embracing it, hilariously funny things come up where 2 years ago I had never would have thought that I'm going to, like, how would you say that in marketing terms, cold outreach.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather jump from a building than do that. And last I'm like, I think I'm ready for that now. Just let's see how I feel when I get rejected
Mm.
or how many people surprise me. Who is that? Who's talking here? Because I've grown from a place of not creating, but from a place of holding my stuff and then seeing how I can grow with it, which felt so uncomfortable for so long that I just didn't do it. And I think the same thing is what you were saying with your analogy of the haircut. It felt uncomfortable. So you thought there must be something wrong.
Mm.
Well, and we're coming full circle here. Isn't that funny? To the
Yeah.
starting of our conversation where we said, like, often this feeling of like things are not working out, they don't mean that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed. They just mean it's new, it's uncomfortable, we're maybe not used to it, it's unfamiliar, and therefore the feeling of discomfort, not as a sign that it's wrong or needs fixing.
Yeah, and now I remember what I want to share just now because he said something like, if I'm going to cut for you today, you're going to walk out as though you have no haircut, which essentially means no difference, right? So that's also like what you were saying, when we optimize for the sake of it, it makes no difference, absolutely no difference to the final result. But we just think that if we optimize and get that thumbnail just a little bit better, and maybe if I adjust the font a little bit better, and whatever you think you need to tweak, that you spend another 1 hour to an otherwise 90% done product, it's not gonna make it into 100%. It's probably gonna go from 90% to 92%. For the extra 1 hour you spend, it means nothing. Like what he said about the haircut. It was like, because I know I tend to do that a lot, and it's actually one of my past coaches that I remember she told me that before, like when things are like about 80% or even 90, if you're a bit perfectionist, but let's say 80%, and done is done, because anything else you try to push from there, it it adds nothing, like literally nothing. That extra 5-10%, not really, not to say to be slipshod, but like discernment again. Yeah.
Such a present thing. And I don't know if there's an English term for it, but here in Germany we have an actual term for what you're describing when we have something that is finished or almost finished, and then we work around a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more just to make it a little bit better. But actually later it turns out to be less good than before. That happens so often. And it is, I think, because of the intention of trying to make things perfect, coming out of the not enoughness instead of saying, like, look what I've just created, with like the sentence that I've shared with you that I think is such a big activation that came to me a few weeks ago. My drafts are worth millions. This is fitting in here so well because this is the actual thing. Like you draft something out, and instead of like overcorrecting and overcorrecting and overcorrecting it until it's quote unquote perfect, just give it out like that with the 80% or even 75. It's just done. It's just there. It might not be perfect, but like you said, the 10 hours extra that we put into it, they might not do anything, or they might make it worse because it's like
Exactly.
diluting the magic of the moment. So I feel this again ties into the piece of ease that we talked about before, where so often it's about the discernment to say, like, do I do it out of living with ease, or do I do it out of kind of hiding a wound or filling up a wound that I have of not being enough or not being worth to receive or not being worth to be seen? That is a very different energy that we lead with. And the energy of coming up and showing up like this and saying, like, I'm worth being seen, does so much more than the thumbnail that we can edit for the next hour for this podcast, for example. So I won't do that. I promise.
It's like having to, it's basically like I need to be perfect before I can be seen. But
Yeah.
actually, we are already perfect as we are, and we can be seen as we are. Yeah, it's everything is tying back, we are
Right.
good enough as we are perfect as we are. So yeah, let's reclaim all parts of us, all our power, and all our voices back.
Yes. Period.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the end of this podcast, girls, because that is, we cannot end with any better sentence here. Wow. Thank you so much. This was lovely. Until the next one, which I'm sure we do in a few weeks. I'm wishing you such a beautiful, beautiful day. And I thank you for being so aware about all the little things in life and sharing them and embracing the storytelling, which I really love because it's such a good way to actually communicate wisdom. So I love that.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to see what unfolds from here.
Me too.